Hello and welcome to this episode of the Mainstreet Show. I'm your host, Mike Hopkins. Today we are joined by the co-directors of Kind Hearts Hospice, Ben Roby and Chad Berry. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. Well, first and foremost, can you tell me a little bit about Kind Hearts and the services you provide?
Absolutely. So Kind Hearts itself began out of the Mansfield branch about a year ago in May of last year, but has existed as a company based out of Toledo since 2000. And Chad and I have spent considerable amount of time, what did I say?
2020.
2020? Chad and I spent considerable amount of time working for corporate hospice entities and decided we wanted to see if we could do more of a family-owned and operated model. And we got introduced to Kind Hearts, which is a family-owned and operated model out of Toledo, and met with their owner, and he was very interested in bringing us on to plant his first satellite branch. So we started the whole application process, both with the state and the federal government, back during 2024, and it took a full year before we actually opened about 10 months ago.
Great, awesome. Well, for those who may be unaware, can you tell me a little bit about hospice care and how it is carried out?
Yeah, absolutely. So for somebody to technically qualify for Medicare is usually the leading payer source for hospice care. For somebody to qualify for hospice, they have to have received a 6-month prognosis related to a terminal illness. Terminal illness could be cancer, Parkinson's disease, heart failure, lung-related issues. So we see all types of different terminal diagnoses. So terminal diagnosis is basically just there's no cure and the disease is not going to get better. And then a medical doctor certifies that with this terminal diagnosis, this person has 6 months or less to live. And then hospice is able to come in, and the main things that we help provide with are symptom management. And we try to do that in a real tight-knit, intimate type of way where our staff really get to know, and by the way, this is going to be any hospice program, not just ours, in a very close-knit, intimate type of way. With their patients and with that patient's family. We are also able to provide social services. So the social worker on a hospice team is going to do a lot of resource development. So if a patient needs help figuring out Medicaid, or if they need help figuring out power of attorney paperwork, of course that's going to require notary or lawyer assistance as well. But social workers are able to help manage a lot of that. We provide chaplain services so that there's spiritual support. And we also provide STNA support to help with personal care and just the physical labor of giving someone a bed bath or a shower. And hospice care is also not just to the patient, but to the family. And so we're really there to help manage the symptoms of the patient to make sure they have joy and dignity and the best days possible with however many days they have left. And so that we're also giving support to their family and helping them with the grieving process and anticipating the loss of their loved one. So that would be the nutshell of what hospice is able to do.
Yeah, it sounds like a very involved process, not only for the client or the patient you're treating, but you said the family as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you think are there any misconceptions about hospice or things people should understand further?
Thousands,
Go ahead.
Yeah. And I started in hospice work in 2002, so I've been in just short of 25 years. Chad's been in about 13 years?
Seven
Okay.
or 8.
So we worked together at a different hospice, and even in that period of time, there's been a lot of push for education, because most people, even today, when you think of hospice, you think of imminent death. I was just doing some report running in our company, and the average length of stay in our company is over 6 months. So it is not you are dying imminently, it means that you have met certain qualifiable criteria that you now benefit from the hospice services benefit. And another thing that most people don't know is that you pay into your hospice benefit the same way that you pay into Social Security or you pay into workman's comp, disability. All of that is part of that package. And the reason that is the case is because in 1982, the United States decided to emulate the model that Europe had started. There was a nurse named Dame Cicely Saunders in the late 50s and early 60s who basically approached British Parliament and said, we don't do death correctly. We don't handle it correctly medically. We do not handle it correctly from a psychosocial perspective. We need to do better with how we care for people with terminal illnesses. So she petitioned Parliament, and it was a great success over there. The United States passed a similar act, the Hospice Care Act, in 1982, which basically means when somebody comes on hospice services, We as the hospice provider, we take care of all aspects of their care. We take care of their medical care, we take care of their durable medical equipment, any supplies that they would need. We have 24/7 call, and then all of the various visits, chaplains, social workers, aides, nurses that Chad mentioned are part of that as well. So we still, even in 2026, are educating people as to what hospice actually is and what it isn't. And what we tell people all the time is, in 25 years of doing this work, the number one thing that I hear is, we wish we had called you sooner. What I have never heard, not a single time, is we called you too early. So we always encourage people, have those conversations early, even if it's just to get the information, to know what your options are. We do free consultations. We normally call them informationals, which basically means we send a representative out from our company to just have a conversation with you about what is the prognosis, what's the diagnosis, here's what may be open to you. Because people generally, as their knowledge increases of what their options are, their stress goes down. All of us at hospice are at hospice because we had a positive experience with hospice. Both my mother and father, both my mother and father-in-law, two of my grandparents passed away on hospice. Our staff is full of people who have had positive experiences and said, I want to do this, I want to be part of this. And that's really what led Chad and I to want to branch out on our own, because we wanted to take the hospice model and add a personal family touch to it.
I mean, that just speaks for itself, the fact that both of you went through hospice and said, I need to be a part of this because of the impact on my life and my family's life. And I'm sure part of that too is, hospice care, I'm sure, can be emotionally heavy work at times, if not often. Are there parts of the job outside of the heavy, emotional lift of the job that are rewarding?
Oh, definitely.
Hugely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We talk about this often because, yes, the heavy side of the job is tremendously heavy. It can be emotionally taxing and emotionally draining. I would say one of the things that's the most rewarding is knowing that somebody has had the opportunity to pass from this life to the next in peace and in comfort, and then also in knowing that their family's not just left hanging, but that they're loved on and that they're cared for. It's also amazing, I say this a lot to people, to not underestimate the power of presence. The amount of times that I've been present when a patient has passed, and I don't really say anything, maybe pray with the family, maybe read a passage of scripture or spend a little bit of time with them, and then I'm just kind of there. And then as the family's leaving, they're like, oh, thank you so much. It was so great to have you here. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I didn't really do anything. But just the presence of a calm person who's there to say, hey, I love you and I care for you, that's incredibly rewarding to know that people have been comforted by our presence and by our care.
Sometimes for us, the reward is weeks or months down the road when a family reaches out to us and tells us from their perspective how much our team's care was able to make a very difficult transition easier. We grow very close to our patients and families. I can remember patients, Chad and I's background is both in chaplaincy. So we both are ministers. I pastor a church here in Ashland. Chad pastors a church in Lexington. And so we try to take that type of pastoral care, not just when we go out to houses, but also in how we want to train our staff to be utterly compassionate. We've had the advantage in that our small staff, and we're using what's called a boutique model, which is purposefully small with really, really carefully handpicked staff. Almost everybody that we work with out of our office, we've worked with at other organizations. So we know their heart, we know their work ethic, we know how much this means to them. So in doing that, what I tell people all the time is all hospices are filled with great people. They really are. What we do a little bit differently in comparison to a corporate hospice structure is we really try to focus on the quality and not the quantity of our census. But who do we have? How can we best care plan for them? What are some of the unique needs that we have? Because being smaller, we're kind of quicker. Chad always uses the example of saying, corporate hospices are like a Carnival cruise line. They're huge and you can ride water slides on the top deck and hit golf balls into the ocean. We're more like a bass boat. So we're smaller, but we can turn really quickly. And that's kind of our advantage, is responsiveness. We answer the phones ourselves as administrators. people can call us and talk to somebody at the top of the food chain right away to get clarity, to get an answer, to get a plan for whatever it is they're facing.
Sure. And you spoke to that a little bit. My next question was kind of be about the mission and the goals of Kind Hearts as a service provider, whether that's structure based or outside of that. Kind of beyond that, on the emotional care level, what are the values or goals that Kind Hearts tries to capitalize on?
How much time do you have?
As long as you'd like to run.
Do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, sure. I would say that kind of at the most nebulous level, the core values are compassion, empathy, and care. And so even in the name, like Kind Hearts, we want to make sure that our staff are all people who radiate genuine kindness, so that as we go into a patient's home and radiate that genuine kindness, that they're met with compassion, with care, and with empathy. And that can all kind of be summed up in meeting people where they are. It's so easy when somebody gets a terminal diagnosis or a prognosis that says, hey, there's nothing else we can do. That sends people into a tailspin and into a panic. And sometimes what those people need is they need someone who's willing to just kind of step into what seems like chaos. And so one of our core values is to kind of step into the mess with our patients and with their families and say, hey, we're here. We can help you. This is what we do. Cry, laugh, whatever it is that you need to do, but we're going to be here and meet you where you are and help you get you where you need to be.
Of course. Well, if someone is considering hospice care either for themselves or for a loved one or family member, where can they learn more about Kind Hearts?
The simplest thing, we have a website, but it's under construction. So the simplest thing is just to get on Facebook and look for Kind Hearts Hospice of Mansfield. If you just do Kind Hearts Hospice, it'll link you to Toledo, but we're the only other branch. So Kind Hearts Hospice of Mansfield, you'll be able to see some profiles on our staff. You'll be able to see we put some fun videos up, particularly on Fridays, where we kind of ambush our employees and ask them 3 questions. We call it Friday Fast 3, and that's very popular. And you can get all the information in terms of the phone number and how to get a hold of us. And we really encourage people to do their homework. I was actually tagged on something on Facebook yesterday, the company was, because somebody had posted to, I think it was a Richland County site, and basically said, hey, I'm looking for a hospice. And everybody was chiming in the comments. And several people had said, hey, check out Kind Hearts. And when I got on and posted, I said, listen, all hospices are going to take great care of you. They have some different flavors, they have some different abilities, but the important thing is that you start having conversations with them now so that you can get out ahead of it. And to speak to what Chad brought to the table in his answer, a lot of times the anxiety is over, I've never gone through this before. I don't understand what I'm supposed to do, what are my options. Well, we come in as the experts because we've done hundreds and thousands of cases and say, okay, if this is the diagnosis that you're looking at, here's what we might recommend. This is what you can expect in terms of a time frame. We can help you with X, Y, or Z, and really just, again, make that transition in that difficult time a lot easier because you have the support of experts in the field.
Of course.
And just to add to that, I mean, for the listeners on this show, if they have immediate questions, not necessarily about a loved one or themselves, they can always call us. And we're happy to ask questions and offer education. Our number's 419-775-5008 to save people the Google search or the Facebook search. But we call it anytime.
Yeah,
you know.
literally, like one of the things we promote with both our business partners, referral sources, and our families is that because our model is built the way that it is, I always tell people when you call our number, it rings simultaneously on 8 phones at once, 4 cell phones that are in the field and 4 phones in the office. Somebody's going to pick up. Like you're never going to get an answering machine when you call us 24/7, and you're always going to get someone who works directly for the company, who knows who you are. I'm calling for this person. Great. What can I help you with? And we're going to get you answers very quickly.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. Well, gentlemen, I really appreciate the time coming.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate
Absolutely.
you having
Thanks
us
for
on.
having us.
Yeah.
Of course.
Thank you.
That's all the time today we have for this episode of the Mainstreet Show. Make sure to follow us across all social media platforms at AUTV Ashland. I'm your host, Mike Hopkins. Thanks for watching.